Cliff Jumper, commence countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And now, ToyCast with your hosts, TFG1 Mike and Spada.
Happy 2012, everyone! This marks the return of ToyCast. I am one of your hosts, TFG1 Mike, and joining me is Spada The Baltmatrix. Hello, sir.
Happy New Year to you, sir.
Yes, how are you?
I am doing well, and yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. We're bringing ToyCast back for probably 1 year only. This isn't something I want to go too deep in on because it's kind of emotional, and I don't want this to turn into an emotional show this episode, but
there are reasons.
Yes. ToyCast will be back from January to December 2012. After that, I'm not sure if the show is going to come back on a permanent basis. We will still do like the BotCon recaps or the BotCon previews or the TFCon roundups with Proto Man. We will still do the Puggleformer Christmas thing with Callie. We'll have special episodes here and there. But after 2013, Jesus Christ, we're not even there yet. After 2012, it's the end of the world already. After 2012, ToyCast will probably be going away, and there's one simple reason. Optimus Scourge, Gary Clark, last year had passed away, and he was one of our good friends, and he was actually one of the first people that helped me put ToyCast together way back in its infancy when he, myself, and Pia/Ben was on the first episode. And I just don't feel right keeping the show going without him here. And that's pretty much that's pretty much all that needs to be said with it. But we will be doing episodes every couple weeks throughout 2012. We'll be talking about a whole bunch of toys, and it'll be awesome. All right, so today, continuing our themes that we were supposed to get out last year, in episode 85, Spada and I are going to talk about Thundercats, Silverhawks, and M.A.S.K, Mobile Armored Strike Command.
And all of these are classic 80 toy franchises that have had, well, let's put it this way. Some of them have come back successfully, some of them not so much.
Not so much. Yes. And the way that we're going to do this is we're going to give each toy line franchise its own segment. So where do you want to go first?
Well, why don't we start off with M.A.S.K? And the reason I say that is because for those of you who don't know, Thundercats and Silverhawks were produced by the same animation studio. They were voiced by the same voice actors, and They were produced by the same production company.
Yeah.
So and the toy lines were also designed by the same folks. So,
well, no, LJN had Thundercats and Kenner had Silverhawks because LJN passed.
Yes, the production was changed,
okay.
But they were designed by the
same individual people. I got you.
Yes.
I got you.
So we might want to cover M.A.S.K first since it's a completely different beast.
Good deal. So we'll be back after this.
okay, I remembered something correctly.
You're not as old as you feel.
True in some respect.
So as you can tell by that awesome theme music, we are talking about 1985's M.A.S.K toy line. And wow, what a toy line it was.
You know, it was one of those interesting things because M.A.S.K came out around the same time as Transformers. And it was... I really like to look at it as kind of a harbinger of like what was to come with the Transformers lines, where you had Power Masters and Headmasters and Target Masters and all that. But it was kind of like, okay, you have these vehicles, and they sort of transform into completely ridiculous things that would possibly never work, but it was still a lot of fun.
Yes, it was.
Except T-Bob.
Oh. Did you have to bring that up? Oh, the memories. Ow. I remember having the Venom Copter / Venom Jet. I don't remember the Miles Mayhem's vehicle.
Switchblade, I think.
Switchblade, yeah. Remember having Switchblade. Yep. I remember... What?
Yep. I had that exact same vehicle. Now, for those of you who don't know, M.A.S.K toy line was... It came with... How tall were those figures, Mike? Do you remember?
I know they weren't. I know that they weren't 3 3/4 inch. They were
2.5, maybe.
Yeah,
they were small, fairly well detailed 2.5-inch figures that each came with their signature mask, which each mask had a different power, and then the vehicles they came with had normal vehicle mode, and then I don't even know what the word for it was. Was it like a fighting mode, or
I don't remember what it was off the toy line. I mean, I would say that it's just an alternate form. I mean, I guess you could say a fighting mode for like Rhino because it turns into this huge whole weapons thing, but I mean, specifically with Switchblade, it's a helicopter that turns into a jet. I mean, that really isn't
right. Well, what do you call that? Maybe just a conversion, and then we're getting into the GoBot territory.
It transformed.
It looks slightly different.
Yes,
and it was a series that was known for just completely off the wall conversions too.
Oh yeah,
because you had the main hero, Matt Tracker, had a vehicle called Thunderhawk, which was a Chevy Camaro that would turn into a quote-unquote jet fighter mode by lifting up gull-wing doors and having thrusters come out of the back and then guns coming out of the air scoop. It's like,
so it's pretty much the DeLorean.
Yeah, you could think of it like the DeLorean, except the wheels didn't fold up.
Right, yeah.
And even as a kid, I remember looking at going, that would never work.
The funny thing is, and I don't know if this is correct or not, I'm old, my memory sucks. I remember having a black and red car that was M.A.S.K. It came with a figure. Mm-hmm. I believe it was a repaint of Thunderhawk. I don't know if the M.A.S.K. line did repaints, but it did the exact same thing that Thunderhawk did. The doors opened up, and it, you could, hold it in your hand and fly it around the room like a little kid would.
Did the front of the vehicle spin 180 degrees, where the wheels would be pointing up? Because there was one of the last toys that was released had something very similar to Thunderhawk, but it was a Corvette instead of a Camaro.
Yeah, I don't know what it actually did. I know it was black and red, and the doors popped up like Thunderhawks did.
I'm trying to think because
really all I remember.
I'm sure that actually did exist. But I can't think of it for the life of me. And as we're talking, I'm trying to do a quick Google search. Now, there was a in the show, there was a deep, dark purple version that
Right.
it showed up in the show, and I think that was more of just a miscoloration. But
Yeah, there was
nothing,
probably an animation
yeah,
error.
nothing is showing up onto Google.
Um, I think one of my crowning achievements for Mask with me and my friends was I was the only one of my friends that had Boulder Hill.
I have that exact memory. I had Boulder Hill, and
Boulder Hill was awesome.
now, for those who don't know, Boulder Hill was the M.A.S.K. Headquarters, and it was a gas station volcano in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And the toy set Boulder Hill would transform or reconfigure, and the gas station would become a battle station where all the gas pumps would become cannons, and the sign for the gas station became like a missile launcher, and then the Boulder Hill itself, this giant boulder would pop off the top,
Yeah.
and I don't remember what was inside.
I don't either.
And it's one of those. It's just, I think it was just an encampment. I want to say.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out. I've got a Google image search up, so
It was like a machine gun post or something.
yeah.
And the garage where the next to the gas station would fold out and become like an armored barrier.
Yeah.
And it was very, very cool. And to this day, the only part of Boulder Hill I have left is the boulder.
Aww.
It sat on the top. I still have that thing after 20-some years.
I mean, it was just such an awesome, that was the thing about the 80s. Not only did you have the action figures, you had the play sets to go along with them. I mean, I know we're not talking about this, but I still have the Castle Grayskull, the original Castle Grayskull. It's not in the best shape, but I still have my original Castle Grayskull that I got for a Christmas or a birthday in 1983. I know Grayskull came out in 82, but I've had this thing for almost 25, 26 years. And the playsets were just so awesome. And toy lines today, you don't get that anymore.
And I think that has to do with cost, primarily. I really do. Simply because things like that back then were a lot cheaper to produce. I mean, let's face it, the oil in the plastics back then was cheaper.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was. But yeah, Boulder Hill was amazing. I had the Switchblade, and I had that repaint of Thunderhawk. If it was a repaint, I don't know. I'm going to have to do more research on that later. But I also had Bruce Sato and Rhino. Rhino was M.A.S.K's version of an armored-up Optimus Prime, and it was awesome.
And it was not the cab over engine like Optimus Prime was. It was what we now know as Optimus Prime from the movies.
Yeah.
And it split in half. The rear section became this ATV vehicle, and then the front part where the cab was became this battle station / science station / missile launcher.
Yeah.
And it was very, very cool.
It was very, very awesome, and it was so well done. Even though those figures, even though the toy, the 2-inch or 2.25-inch, even though they were really small, really for M.A.S.K, what it was all about was the vehicles for the toy line. I thought it wasn't about having a 3 3/4-inch or 6-inch action figure to play around with. You can go to He-Man or Thundercats or Transformers for that. I mean, M.A.S.K was all about the vehicles, and it was so awesome.
And when I was a little kid, the ones that I loved were, I believe it was Gator. It was a what do you call it? A Jeep Wrangler.
Gator was a Jeep
that opened up and shot out a boat.
Yep.
And the other one was it was all the stuff from the original, from the first releases. The Switchblade was the helicopter that turned into a jet. Then the other one was, I believe, was called no, not Stiletto, Piranha. That's what it was. The motorcycle that, and to this day, I think this is absolutely ridiculous. It was a motorcycle with a sidecar. And then the bad guy would jump off the motorcycle into the sidecar, and the sidecar would become a submarine. But then he's got the motorcycle is left somewhere.
It's a big mystery, like Optimus Prime's trailer.
Yeah.
Where did it go?
And then my other favorite was Jackhammer, which was a Ford Bronco that transformed into this four-wheeled tank that the front grille would fold down and pop out laser guns. Then the hood would come up above the front windshield to form a shield. And then the back bed would lift up to be this cannon embankment. I always loved that one.
Yeah. It was so cool. And it was so funny because I could take, like, Blaster or Optimus Prime or someone like that, and I could have them pointing their gun at Matt Tracker, and it's like, we are giant robots. We will squish you.
And it was really interesting because you had these human-built pseudo-transformers, and then you had Transformers and GoBots. And the one thing I always loved was the Transformers were almost exactly in scale with M.A.S.K.
Yeah.
That was something I always loved.
Yeah. And the thing about, for me with M.A.S.K. is, which not a lot of us are either or not a lot of us aren't fans of this, but if you weren't a fan of Transformers or if you weren't a fan of G.I. Joe, go to M.A.S.K. It's the best of both of those worlds. I mean, it's basically Transformers meets G.I. Joe.
And then there was also GoBots. I mean, GoBots were kind of like a G.I. Joe combined with Transformers, except you have not the vehicles of G.I. Joe, you have the 3.5-inch figures of G.I. Joe in robot.
Yeah, GoBots are Transformers Kmart knockoffs. That's all they are.
Well,
sorry,
I mean, that is true, but it's you are. I'm not denying that. Now, M.A.S.K. was released by Kenner here in the U.S. And Hasbro released Transformers.
Yep.
And who released GoBots? Was it Takara or Tonka? It was Tonka.
Tonka originally, and then Hasbro bought them out.
Oh, right. Later.
Yeah. The saddest thing for me in the M.A.S.K. franchise is this bit of information that happened. In 2008, 22 years after M.A.S.K.'s cancellation, a Matt Tracker figure was released as part of the G.I. Joe toy line with the codename Specialist Tracker. His file card states that Venom was created by Cobra instead of the comic series Contra World. The release of Specialist Tracker has caused speculation of a M.A.S.K. revival. I absolutely hated this. There
was an original Kenner comic book,
right?
And that was really freaking dark.
Yes,
and the reason that they brought that up was because in actuality, one of the last comics to be released had this character in the shadows,
right?
And everyone at the time said, "Oh my God, it's Cobra Commander," because the guy was wearing a helmet and the outline of the helmet was Cobra Commander.
Yeah.
That's where this came from.
Right.
And for Hasbro, in the long run, it actually makes a little bit of sense if you start to think about it. Don't get me wrong. It's absolutely bananas and silly to the point of really, but for me, it actually is kind of cool. Actually, I think.
My problem is, here's Hasbro dangling a giant ball of yarn in front of a cat and then yanking it right back because, hey kids, here's a Matt Tracker that's in the G.I. Joe line, but oh no, we're not doing a Mask revival, heaven forbid. Why didn't they, I know it's all cost and it's all logistics and whatever else. There's enough of a fan base from most of the people that I know, and probably a lot of the people that you know, there's enough Mask fan base to justify a toy line specifically for Mask.
Oh, absolutely. And you and I both, yeah, and you know me pretty well. I would be all over that.
Oh yeah, you would spend like $700 on every figure.
And some of our other friends would probably be spending quite a bit on it.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like that in 2013. Because I don't think there's going to be a Transformers movie in 2013. I'm going to be willing to bet they'll push it to 2014. The Hub needs more shows.
Yeah.
So if they're not going to be doing another, for those who don't know, the Hub is the partnership television channel between Discovery Kids and Hasbro.
Right.
My Little Pony, huge success.
Yep.
Transformers, huge success.
G.I. Joe Renegades, huge success.
Well, huge success amongst the fans, but they've indefinitely canceled it.
Yeah,
I'm willing to bet we're going to get a reboot, but
yeah.
I would be willing to bet you that if they bring G.I. Joe back,
yeah,
I wonder if they're going to bring it back as G.I. Joe like Special Ops and have a Mask twist to it.
I don't know. I don't know if a lot of the G.I. Joe fans would like that. I'm not exactly sure. What I find really weird is
just have Robert Orsi and Kurtzman write it.
Good Lord. I know that Hasbro has the rights to Mask. Why aren't and Shout Factory just released the complete series this past year? Why isn't Mask reruns on the Hub? I don't get that. Like, you have My Little Pony, you have, the new My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. You have...
They don't have the original. I don't think Hasbro has the rights to the original show. Because the original show was by Dick Entertainment, and Dick Entertainment is owned by somebody else now, I think.
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, not Dick Entertainment, Deke.
I guess you could call them dicks because they put out some really, really bad.
Well, what's really bad is their official company name is The Incredible World of Deke.
Yeah.
They're owned by in April 2007, Deke Entertainment. Yep, they still own the rights. And they are in partnership with NBC and CBS. That's why.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And you and I both know how wonderful NBC treats its shows.
Let's not go there. All right, so back to the toys. Overall, for Mask, to kind of close this out, great, amazing toy line. I would love to see a really, truly awesome update of the toy line if it was done right. But if they're just going to throw it in with G.I. Joe and not make it its own toy line, I'm probably not going to care about it.
Right. Now, one thing I think we really need to mention is the toy line remained like consistent for several years. I mean, from the time they came out in 85 and 86, and even into 87, they were fairly consistent. They had different themes throughout each year. Right. The first season was more military. It was more consumer vehicles that turned into military-grade vehicles. And that was kind of done the same in the second series. Then in Season 3, we had racing. And then Season 4, or Series 4, is where it started to get weird.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the toy line jumped the proverbial shark.
Oh, yes, because they started doing those split-seconds vehicles.
Yes, and these split-second vehicles where the vehicle would split in half and you'd have one figure with a mask and then a translucent version of that figure. Or a ghost version, I think is what they called it.
Yeah. Oh my god. That's... The original 65 episodes of the cartoon is really where it's at. The second season, the racing season, it was alright.
I don't remember that season at all.
Well, you'll you'll have to look it up. I know all 10 episodes of that, because that was that was the one thing that was so stupid to me. Back in the 80s, every syndicated cartoon was 65. Look at He-Man. He-Man has 130 episodes. That's 2 seasons of 65 half hours. You know, Same thing with Transformers only had 98 episodes, but I mean it's the same thing where Mask had the first season had 65 episodes, and I guess by the end of that it was starting to kind of fade or something. So they're like, here, let's turn it into a racing thing and only do 10 episodes. There's only 75 episodes of that entire series, which is so silly. I don't know.
And it just ended, right? There wasn't any.
As far as I know, back then there was no real. It's not like today where you have cartoons that actually have a story and continuity. It was, back then it was villain of the week, episode of the week, whatever. As far as I remember, it just kind of ended. There was no real send off, but I'll be finding that out once I start Masked Mayhem in April.
And then in 1996, the toy line appeared, and it was kind of a discount toy line, and it was called Vortec.
Oh my god.
And there was also a show, and it was on syndicated. It went straight to syndication.
All right.
I apologize. It was produced by Fox, and then later aired on ABC's Power Block. So that does not count as syndication.
No, it does not count as syndication. Syndication is when it shows up everywhere.
Yeah, and this was a toy line that was produced by Kenner as well. And I actually bought one of these things, and I took it out of the blister pack, and the dang thing fell apart. I mean, it was pathetic. It was that super cheap mid-90s plastic that, like, Happy Meals were ashamed of being.
Oh, wow.
And
wow.
It's just, oof. Yeah, it didn't last too long.
No, not really. So with that, we're going to move on to the next toy line. Thundercats. I don't. A lot of people nowadays say the Thundercats cartoon sucked. I still love it. I can still watch episodes of Thundercats and still really enjoy it.
Well, the thing that's kind of ruined the show for me is there have been some outtakes floating around on the internet for the past couple of years, and I've seen those episodes where those outtakes are supposedly done, and it doesn't ruin it for me, but I just kind of snicker.
Well, people are like, every time I see someone talking about Thundercats on the internet, they're like, "Oh, this show sucks because the writing is stupid and blah 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 blah." It was the '80s. The writing is not supposed to make. Look at every single '80s cartoon. I guarantee you, there's not a single story in any '80s cartoon that makes sense.
I can't remember who it was, but the writing team for He-Man. I'm sorry?
David Wise was a writer over there. Larry DiTilio was one of the main staff writers.
Yeah, they created the '80s serial cartoon where something would happen that week in that episode, and then in the next episode, everybody resets.
Yeah. The other one that was a staff writer over there was JMS, J. Michael Straczynski.
Okay. And that was the thing that was done in the 80s. I mean, you look at Transformers, G.I. Joe, He-Man, Thundercats, Silverhawks, everybody had...
Story of the week.
Yeah, story of the week or event of the week.
Because that's what it was back then. It wasn't about, starting a season with a story and continuing. It's not like today's style of writing where people expect continuity in cartoons.
And it wasn't just cartoons. I mean, everything had that. Go back and look at old Cosby Show episodes, which is still considered one of the greatest family comedies of all time. Same thing. I mean, you look at just about everything from the 80s. I mean, even Law and Order when it first started, and you look at Law and Order today, it always starts with a body, I will admit that, but you think about it, it's always a fresh start or a reset.
Right, yeah.
At least back then it was. Yeah. Today they're like continuing side stories, but we won't get into that.
Right. But, my point here is, even though we kind of deviated a little bit, is that Thundercats, the original 80s cartoon, I loved it as a kid. I can still go back and watch episodes of it. Hell, when I was doing Tooncast Classic, or a week before we were going to do our Thundercats episode talking about the show in retrospective, I actually sat down with all 4 DVD sets, because it came out in Season 1, Volume 1, Season 1, Volume 2, and then vice versa with Season 2. I sat down and I watched every single episode within the span of a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, we're not saying that every single episode was an award winner by any means.
Right. No. There are episodes that are just off the wall, batshit insane, but the cartoon overall is not as bad as some of the people that I've seen on the internet say that it is. It just isn't. But the toy line, I loved the toy line as much as it frightens me now.
It was definitely interesting because if you look at it today, you can see the parallels between the original Thundercats toy line and and He-Man and the original He-Man toy line. There is a lot of similarities there.
Yeah. Now I had Lion-O. I think I had both versions of Mum-Ra. The mummified version and the super I'm going to kill you with evil version. That's kind of like a mint green color. I had Tigra. I had the Kit and Cat figures. I had the Thunder Tank. I believe I had Cat's Lair, but I'm going off memory here. I don't remember. I might be romanticizing that I had Cat's Lair, but it could be just that I wanted the Cat's Lair from the cartoon. But I had a number of these toys, and I loved them, and they were great.
Now, I honestly cannot remember having any of these toys other than one of the Berserkers, Ram Bam. He's the only one that I remember distinctly having. I do remember my friends at the time. One of my friends had everything. Like, I was the Transformers guy. I think he was the Thundercats guy. And he had not one, but 2 Thunder Tanks.
Yeah.
I think just it ended up happening that way with gifts or whatnot.
Yeah.
But I also remember I seem to remember having, and I don't know if you remember these things, Mike. They were they were toys that were like water based. They had water in them, and you would push this button to shoot these rings up into the enclosure and try to get them like stuck on um, puzzle pieces.
Oh yeah, I remember them vaguely, but
I had a Thundercats version of one of them,
oh sweet.
and I remember it because you could push the button and it had batteries, and if you push the button it would make sounds like ho.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. For a second there, I thought you were going to go into a Battle Beasts discussion.
No, 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 no.
That's
Wrong
for
toy line.
another episode of ToyCast.
Yeah, we only have 97 days to find that out, but little inside joke there, folks.
Wow. But the Thundercats line was so awesome. The vehicles were awesome. The play sets were awesome. Looking back at it now, I remember Mumra being a more blue figure than what the images that we're actually looking at are, because he looks more tealish green in these images.
He's the color of mint.
Ugh. Ugh. I did, and I'll obviously put all these links in the in the show notes so people can see these images for themselves. I scrolled down on the page and I saw that they did a Groon figure in the old line, and I remember having Groon, but I don't think they ever did a Jaga, did they?
I don't think they did. I don't think there was ever a Jaga figure.
That's kind of disappointing. Especially with that whole, I think it might have just been one episode, it might have been two episodes, it might have been a two-parter, but that whole Jaga versus Groon saga that they had back in the day.
Now, there is a 6-inch statue that has been recently released in the past few years that is of Jaga.
Yeah, no, I was looking for, and I could have sworn they had an original LJN figure of him, but I don't think that LJN ever made one.
That is entirely possible, but no, there was a Jaga figure in the season 3 or series 3, and a good website for fans of for old toys is toyarchive.com. I've been going to the site for years. I don't know how often they update, but they have a lot of old series. And going there, I found a Jaga figure.
Huh.
I don't remember ever seeing a Jaga figure.
I don't remember this either.
So I'm wondering if that was a Canada or European only release.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all.
Okay, and I'm not insane because I remember there being multiple Burbear Burbles.
Oh yes.
And there were multiple toys.
Yes, there were. The one thing that I'm really sad about when it comes to the LJN line of Thundercats is the Sword of Omens. Because as a 5-6-year-old, I wanted to reach into the TV and I wanted to pull the sword I wanted the sword from the cartoon. And they give us these little plastic flimsy swords to go with the figures, and I'm like, oh no, this is not what I want.
I mean, at least kids today have the
play action
play action stuff.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s, we did not have that stuff.
Well, no, because the 80s is all about, oh my god, it's too violent. We're going to turn our children into violent murderers with swords.
Well, you also have to realize it wasn't until 1983 when you could have toy-based shows to begin with.
Yeah, that's true.
And which He-Man was the first one.
Yep. Yeah, looking at Rover Bill or whatever the heck his name, yeah, they look like this Burble image, it looks like it's Teddy Ruxpin gone wrong.
Cyber Ruxpin.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Now, Thundercats was. I always found Thundercats interesting because they always had interesting vehicles. Like you had the Mutant Fist Pounder, and then you had the Thunder Claw and the Thunder Tank. And then the original toys had these weird backpacks that shot little foam balls. And growing up, I never remembered that.
Yeah, no. The only vehicle I had from this line was the Thunder Tank. I never had the Nosediver. I never had any of the other mutant vehicles. I would have loved to have had those. I think that would have been awesome. One of the things that this show specifically did for me when it came to the vehicles was specifically to the Thunder Tank. The Thunder Tank had its own theme song, and it was so awesome. Mm-hmm. It was just so awesome. Oh, man.
Now, I still love Thundercats. It's got a wonderful place in my heart, but I think even as a kid, I was a very weird child because I would look at things and go, that just doesn't work.
He turned into a very weird adult, too.
Well, yes, but hey, I will have you know I'm a fully functioning member of society.
Right.
Now, wasn't there a play set? Wasn't there a Mum-Ra play set?
Yes.
I seem to remember a play set that had you could do the transformation for Mum-Ra where you would just literally spin a dial and the figures would switch place.
Yeah. It's kind of like Indian Dr. Jones in the Nazi castle with the fire, where you just hit a switch and it switches you around to it. Yeah, they did have a playset for Mum-Ra's Tomb.
And they had a playset for
Cat's Lair.
Cat's Lair. Did they have any others?
I believe they had the Tower of Omens as well.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm not exactly sure what other ones they had. I don't think they made a Castle Plundar. The Mutants Castle thing.
I don't think they did either.
I don't remember. I mean, folks, if we're, remembering stuff wrong, or if we're, we might remember stuff that doesn't exist, it's because it's been a long road since the 80s.
Yeah, and it's been...
Here we go, here's Old Man Spada coming at you.
What's that, Beavis? Okay, so yes, there was the Thundercats playset, which looks disturbingly like a Castle Grayskull. There was the Mum-Ra Crypt, which is just a snake skull head and his tombstone. And they apparently had a weapons pack.
Good Lord.
Figure that one out.
Yeah. I guess we should talk a little bit about the 2011 series with the new series and the new toys before we kind of move off of this. But, yeah, I'm not thrilled with what Bandai has done. Specifically to the fact that, oh, hey, guess what? We're going to start with 8 inches of Lion-O and Tigra that don't fit in with any of your other, they're going to tower over all your other toys.
And those were the classics figures. That was very strange. And I have the San Diego Comic-Con Classics Lion-O. And that is a terrible figure. That is an awful, awful figure. Especially for a convention exclusive. It's bad. So I avoided those classic figures like a plague. Now, I picked up the 6-inch version of the new Mum-Ra and the new Lion-O, and both of those are very good figures. There are some problems with them, but overall, they're really, really nice.
Yeah. And these play sets for the old ones, they just...
They're scary.
Yeah. They are. But the new line is obviously so, kids today can get into the cartoon and can get into the toys, and they have a 4-inch line for the new series and a 6-inch line for the new series. The 4-inch line, if you buy the vehicles and all that stuff, they come with gimmicks, which obviously, every toy line nowadays has gimmicks, or else, people wouldn't be buying them for their children. What really surprised me that I really loved out of the new toy line was how badass the new Thunder Tank was.
The new Thunder Tank is very, very cool.
Yes, it is.
I like it a lot. It's not perfect, but
it's not perfect, but it's awesome.
It is very, very cool. And the thing I think I love about the new Thundercats more than anything is actually Snarf, because he doesn't talk, but he gets more character than the original Snarf did with just whining.
Yeah. I mean, the original Snarf, that's what it was at the time.
It was the I hate to keep saying this, but it was the 80s.
Right. It was the 80s, and having Bob McFadden do the voice for Snarf and having him be Lion-O's nursemaid, that's what the story was at the time. I'm glad that... One of the reasons why I'm glad the way Snarf is in the new series is because of the fact that, sadly, Bob McFadden is no longer with us. And no disrespect to any voice actor today, I don't think any voice actor today could replicate if they went in the direction of, hey, let's revive Snarf the way he was. I don't think any voice actor working today could do what Bob McFadden did with Snarf. Not to be as good as it was back then, and I'm glad that they made him more of a pet.
Yes, I agree.
And he's just kind of funny that way. I mean, because it was the first episode, the first 2-part episode of the series where he looks into a giant gem and then he just puts this cheese ball grin on, and it's his giant head reflecting in this gem, and I thought that was so hilarious.
Yeah, and he's kind of he is right now kind of a comedy character, but at the same time he has a personality.
Oh yes.
So, oh my. I found a site that has some unreleased prototypes of Thundercat figures, and apparently there was supposed to be something called the Luna Tacker, and I don't remember this from the show, but it makes me think of GoBots, Zod from GoBots.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, sorry to derail us.
Wow. It just depends on what they're going to do with the classics and what they're going to be doing with the new line as far as how well it will go.
Now we're getting more figures, but Bandai of America, who's currently producing them, has been very catty, I hate to say, about what they're releasing.
Yeah.
And Cartoon Network has stopped airing new episodes. Now, I don't know when those are going to pick back up.
Yeah, that's with any cartoon on that network is, you have all this stuff that happens, but yet, let's, we have to put more of a focus on this show, so let's put this one on the back burner until we can get back to it. And that just kind of it's not really the showrunners, people's fault. It's not the people that work on the show. It's the network that it's on, sadly. I don't know. I thought originally...
Oh my.
Geez. Fart much? I thought originally that the first season was supposed to be 26 episodes like Transformers Prime was. But apparently it's only 13.
Yeah, the last episode was called Between Brothers, and it aired November 25th, 2011.
Yeah.
Now, according to the Thundercats wiki, they've got episode titles for 14 to 26,
Yeah.
but nobody knows when it's going to be airing.
Yeah.
So when are they airing versus when are the new figures coming out? Nobody has any idea.
Yeah. And see, that's the funny thing. Like, I'm not on the Thundercats wiki, but it says here that on the actual, Wikipedia.org, series overview. Season 1, 26 episodes, season premiere July 29th, 2011, season finale to be announced. So Season 1 isn't over. Between Brothers is... I don't know if it's kind of like what TNT and USA does, where they'll be like, hey, here's a summer premiere, and we're going to show this many episodes, and then we're going to leave you with a cliffhanger, and then we're going to come back in the winter and do a winter premiere and show off the last 5 episodes or 6 episodes or however many episodes there are going to be in that season. So, I don't know. I honestly don't. I mean, I can see going on a holiday break. I can see that. But, it's January, it's New Year. Maybe they're going to wait till February sweeps to start bringing the episodes back.
And
I'm not sure.
That's entirely possible because that's what the Hub is doing with Transformers Rescue Bots and Transformers Prime.
Yeah. Yeah.
And apparently, I think Cartoon Network is bringing back Star Wars, the Clone Wars, in February as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully we'll see more of the Thundercats episodes.
And more of the toys, because the toys are actually pretty good.
Yeah, the toys are pretty awesome. They're not really my thing, because there's just some things where I like the cartoon more than the toys.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and vice versa.
G.I. Joe is that way for me.
I love the cartoon. I can't, there are a couple episodes that I'm not really thrilled about, but I can't wait to see what they do in the future. The toy line, I hope that we're getting, as they introduce more characters, I hope that the toy line will also produce those characters.
That'd be nice.
I don't think to this point Bandai has not released any mutants, have they?
Yeah, Slythe was in the 4-inch
he was released.
Line. Yeah.
Oh.
He was released in the 4-inch line with the weird little vehicle thingy.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. So I guess, we'll have to see what the future holds for Thundercats with that, unless you have any other thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's time. We've talked enough about the kitties. Let's talk about the birds.
It's all your fault that I'm addicted to Angry Birds. It's all your damn fault, dude.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We'll be back after this.
Tally ho! Wings of silver, birds of steel. Silverhawks, partly metal, partly real. Silverhawks, soaring through the highway of the heavens in their flight. Silverhawks, a rainbow in the
Things that are partly metal and partly real, the Silverhawks toy line from 1986.
Now, I have to admit, in my personal opinion, I think this is the weakest of the toy lines we're talking about today.
Okay. I have to disagree. okay, but I'm only disagreeing between this and Thundercats. Just looking at the Silverhawks figures compared to the Thundercats figures, the Silverhawks figures remain as I remember them, whereas the Thundercats figures, like, I remember Lion-O for what he is, but that Mumra was not what I remembered at all.
Rather terrifying.
Yes, you know.
Now, for me, growing up, this was one of those toy lines that I only had a few figures from. I specifically remember having just some of the villains.
Yeah.
I think I had the main villain, Monstar. I know I had the one villain named Molecular, and I know I had the other, the robotic villain named Buzzsaw.
Right.
But I personally do not remember having any of the Silverhawks.
Now see, I'm slightly different. I think the only one of the heroes out of the main original Silverhawks, not the inclusions like Hot Wing and all that, the original ones, I don't remember having Stargazer. I do remember having all of the original team members, though. Quicksilver, Steelheart, Steel Will, Bluegrass, and Copper Kid. I do remember having all of those as a child, and I do remember having Monstar. Past that, I don't think I had anything else.
Well, there were only 2 series of toys.
Right.
And the first series had pretty much all the main characters. It also contained the, the Mirage, which was the Silverhawks plane.
Yep.
And I think it also had Sky Shadow, which was Monstar's giant bat plane.
Yeah.
And then Series 2, oh no, the other one I had was the Bull Guy. Because I remember I still to this day have his bird that turns into a hammer. Series 2 was a couple more of the villains, and then a black version of Quicksilver called something called an ultrasonic suit. So they were variants.
Yeah. Well, it is the 80s, and repaints are inevitable.
Well, at least I don't know if it suffered from the same thing that killed the He-Man line of, what was it, all the He-Man figures and Skeletor figures, and then practically everything else was a chase figure.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, also... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say this line was produced by Kenner as well.
Yeah.
And it it was in stores from 87 into 88. And the show was only around from, 86 to 88?
No, 86, 87. It really only had one season, I think.
Which was a shame, because it was a good show.
Yeah. It had 65... it started September...
September of 86. And
September of 86.
December of...
Well, yeah,
Wait, what
1 year. Yeah. 1 year. That's it.
We're both looking at the Wikipedia article.
List of episodes, 65 episodes, September to December.
Of 1986.
Yep.
So it aired every single day almost.
Yep. For 3 months. Yep.
Wow, I never knew that.
Yeah.
That is weird.
Yep.
I mean, talk about a mid-season replacement. Actually, no, I think this was... That doesn't even make any sense.
Well...
Okay, it was the 80s. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, but I want to double-check. So give your thoughts on some of the figures and stuff, because I'm going to double-check with IMDb just to make sure.
Yeah, some of the figures were... I always found the Silverhawk villain figures to be more interesting than the hero figures. And the reason for that is the hero figures are all practically the same. You have a very, very poorly posable figure that had an action of you squeeze the legs together and then it deploys their wings. And their wings were made of shiny mylar, which if I remember correctly, had a really bad habit of getting torn and getting caught on things.
Yep.
Now their other gimmick was each Silverhawk figure, bad guy or good guy, came with a flying animal of some sort.
Mostly birds.
Yeah, mostly birds. I want to say Monstar came with a bat, which was pretty cool. And each one of those birds could do something. Like the character of Bluegrass, his bird turns into a wicked guitar.
Yep.
And it looks like some of them have. I'm not sure what kind of action they had. Like Steelheart comes with Razor, and I think her bird had a pecking action, and then the wings would act like saw blades.
Yeah.
It was a little weird, but it was interesting. It was definitely an interesting gimmick.
Yeah, I didn't really care for the birds were just accessories to me. I like Bluegrasses is the only one that really makes any sense because it's his guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Oh hey kids, look, it's a Laserbeak that turns into a guitar. Oh wait, no, that's 30 years later that happened. But yeah, you're right. The Mylar, soft fabric. See, that's the thing though. These figures, the figures themselves felt metallic. I mean, it wasn't like your average, it wasn't like your average like Thundercats figure, or M.A.S.K figure,
They
or
felt
He-Man
plated.
figure.
They had
Yeah.
this. It was a weird process where they could make the plastic feel like plate, like
Yep.
metal plate.
Yep. And that's what I love. I think one of the reasons why I love this toy line so much is that because shiny, but yeah, you're right. The wings, God, I remember so many times my Steel Will and my Quicksilver and Copper Kid, the wings would break off so many times.
And I swear I remember the Mylar would flake,
Oh yeah.
and I think I'm really trying to think about it, and I think maybe at one point I had one of those figures and it was just flaking all over the place and my mom threw it out.
Yeah. Looking at the villains, like I said, I only remember having Monstar out of the villains. I don't even remember having Molecular. But I had all the heroes, and really which is kind of sad, I would usually have my Silverhawks teaming up with the Thundercats to go against Mumra and Monstar at the same time.
I always thought Monstar was a little weird because he really was. He was kind of another Mumra,
Yeah.
but he wasn't nearly as capable as Mumra.
Oh no. Well, that's because Monstar had the worst henchmen as far as being competent. I mean, the mutants had their own agenda. They would still serve Mumra, and they were still, Monkian was still very incompetent, but Monstar's goons just...
The Thundercat villains were actually able to get something done.
Yeah. The Silverhawks ones, not so much.
And with Monstar, something else that I think we need to mention is the Monstar toy was really the first time I ever remember seeing the head-switching gimmick. If you look at some of the Power Ranger figures, they have the automorphing gimmick where their human head or their person head will flip around and you'll have a morphed head.
Yeah.
They did that exact same thing with the original Mumra figure.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Monstar, not Mumra.
Mumra, Monstar. I had a few of the, and of course we're deviating here. I had a few of those Ranger. I think I had all the original 5 Ranger ones that are the automorphs, and I never liked them. I'd just rather have a Ranger with the helmet than the Automorph. But Monstar's Automorph was interesting because you have this pretty much, nondescript face, and then you enact the Automorph, and it has this huge ass star-like helmet, and it's just so much more awesome.
It was very weird.
Yeah.
And then he had the what was the name of his Skyrunner?
Skyrunner, yep.
I never knew a toy of this until we started talking about doing this show. I never knew a toy of that existed.
Yep.
And apparently it exists, but I don't remember ever seeing one.
I think the only thing this line is missing is Monstar's Fortress and Steelhaven. If we had play sets of either one of those or both of them, I mean, yeah, sure, the Mirage is great because that was their ship, and you could, I believe, I could be wrong, but you could fit Silverhawks in it, right?
Oh, yeah, you could put
yeah.
all the Silverhawks in it.
Yeah. The Mirage was great, but I think if we had Hawkhaven, or if we had the Monstar Fortress, or I forget what it's called, I think that's where they really dropped the ball with this line, was there were no playsets. And I did double check with IMDb. So between IMDb and Wikipedia, they both list September 8th to December 5th of 86. So it ran within 3-4 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then it probably went right into syndication after that.
Oh, that was syndication for it. And then it would just rerun itself after that. I mean, there were no new episodes after December 86. And it was probably in syndication till 90, 91 maybe.
When it disappeared.
Pretty much, yeah.
Man.
I think it's time to bring it back, but it has to be done right. Both a new cartoon and a new toy line have to be done right. You have to have, you know what? Honestly, because I'm looking at this figure as I'm looking over here. There's a Masters of the Universe Classics repaint that they did called Hurricane Hordak, and he has a vac metal armor plating where his horde symbol is. It's a gold vac metal plating piece of armor. And I think if they did a new Silverhawks toy line with this style that hopefully wouldn't flake, a new toy line would be great. The cartoon, for me, it would depend on who they got to do the voices. Even if they want it to be a new incarnation, like the Thundercats is a new incarnation, it's not just reviving the old series. They would have to find really good voice actors for the casting, and they would have to find really good. The animation style is really where it's going to come down to being awesome or being just plain. Yeah. But yeah, I do agree. As much as I, argue with my buddy Optimus Solo about how Thundercats is so much better than Silverhawks, I do agree. It's time for Silverhawks to come back.
I would like to at least see, what would be nice? If they made like a Silverhawks like one-shot movie.
That would be awesome.
That would be cool. I really don't think we need a Green Lantern series. I think they could.
We're getting one.
I know. I would rather see effort be put into something like Silverhawks. That I think would be. I think they could do this right.
Yeah.
If the same production or the same animation studio that's doing Thundercats did Silverhawks, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool.
Now, toy-wise, I still think the Silverhawks out of the three that we've talked about is the weakest.
As far as construction and durability, I will agree, yes, but you can't help but be mesmerized by the shiny factor of those figures. I mean, it's kind of looking like a bright neon light. It's blinding.
Come on, dude. At our age, anything that shiny is going to be really expensive.
Yeah, true. So I think, do you have anything else?
I can't think of anything. I still think M.A.S.K out of the three that we talked about was my favorite toy line.
So we're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back to close the show, and then that'll be it. We'll be back after this. Welcome to a collaboration between the GeekCast Radio Network and the Pop Culture Network. This is From the Command Center, the podcast. I am your host, TFG and Mike from the GCRN, and joining me is Zordon himself. Scotty Cash.
That's right, Scotty Cash from the Pop Culture Network, and today we're introducing you to the audio version of From the Command Center, the podcast that will entail our intake on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the episodes, the seasons, and all that other good stuff.
Do you like retro shows? Did you grow up in either the 80s or the 90s? Then tune into Telecast, GeekCastRadio.com's newest podcast. Join us here on the Telecast as we revisit some of your favorite shows, such as Clarissa Explains It All, Salute Your Shorts, Saved by the Bell, and much, much more, only on GeekCastRadio.com.
2012 marks the 30th anniversary for Masters of the Universe. We here at the GCRN are celebrating with a brand new series of podcasts. The Powers of Grayskull series will cover every episode of every MOTU cartoon. Yes, even that crappy New Adventure stuff. Join Optimus Solo and TFG1 Mike as they tell tales of Eternia, discover the myths of Etheria, become masters in space, and finally masters of Grayskull. You can find the Pogs podcasts in iTunes and the web at www.geekcastradio.com. Good journey!
You can now hear the GeekCast Radio Network while on the go with Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher is a free use and talk mobile app available for your smartphone. And when you download Stitcher to hear GeekCast Radio, you'll have a chance to win money. Downloading is quick and easy. Just find Stitcher in the App Store. During registration, hit the promo code box and enter GeekCast Radio, all one word, to get automatically entered to win $100. The latest episodes of the shows will be waiting for you in your favorites. You'll get access to lots of other amazing shows too. Always available to you on demand, no syncing. It's Stitcher Smart Radio. Don't forget to enter promo code GeekCast Radio when you register.
So there you have it, folks. There is episode 85 of ToyCast. We are back. We're going to be hitting it all year long here in 2012. What do you got coming up on your YouTube channel, sir?
I just finished putting up some Robot Masters figures. Next week, I will be delving into the brand new toy line SH Monster Arts, which is kind of like SH Figure Arts, but we're talking Godzilla next week. And I have been bringing up a bunch of Beast Machines, Beast Wars, and Gen 2 figures that I'm going to be getting into, and I'm eagerly awaiting my Transformers Prime Viacon to show up. I'm waiting for that guy to show up from Robot Kingdom.
It's stuck in customs.
Nope, it's on its way. It's in the U.S. It's in transit. Of course, who knows when I'll actually get it. It said United States in transit. That's all I know.
Wow. All right, so thank you for joining us here on ToyCast. There are several ways to get in contact with us or leave feedback for the show. Visit the website, geekcastradio.com. You can comment on each episode post. You can leave the show's feedback in iTunes. Please do this. You can go over to youtube.com/Baltmatrix, and you can watch all of Spada's awesome videos. Follow us on Twitter. The show name there is TFToycast. Mine is TFG1 Mike. What is your Twitter?
Baltmatrix, BALTMATRIX.
Yeah, I was going to go for a Mickey Mouse joke, but I ain't going there. Become a fan on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/Geekcast Radio Network. Call the voicemail line. Tell us the show you're leaving the message for and your name. 502-526-5821. We hope you enjoyed this episode of ToyCast and wish you'll join us next time when we will be delving into the world of Transformers the movie, the 1986 toy line. So that's what we'll be talking about next time. For now, I am TFG1 Mike with
Spada The Baltmatrix.
Thank you for listening. Until next time.
Good night, everybody.